I became a sorcerer to protect my wife. What saved me was much worse. The last time I prayed, the thing that answered were my wife's face. Not at first. At first, it was just a hum, a pressure behind my eyes when I went too deep into meditation. I was always the one who went too deep. My wife, Serena, she found her faith in the sunlight on the floorboards, in the smell of rosemary she grew in the window box. Her rituals were soft, a pinch of salt, a whispered word for safety. She called it touching the shoreline. But I wanted the ocean. I was ravenous for it. I'd spent my whole life feeling like I was standing in a silent room screaming, and I was desperate for something, anything, to scream back. I hunted for it in crumbling books that smelled of dust and vanilla, in symbols scratched onto vellum, in the acrid smoke of herbs that were supposed to peel back the layers of the world. Serena worried. I saw it in the way she'd touch my arm as I stumbled out of my study after 2 days without sleep, my eyes raw from staring at candlelight. "Kaylin," she'd whisper, her voice like cool water. "The divine doesn't hide. You don't have to tear the world apart to find it." But her gentle faith felt like a snack when I was starving. I loved her more than the concept of my own soul, and that love became a terrible excuse. I told myself I was diving into the abyss to build a fortress for her, to learn the names of the shadows so I could keep them at bay. I was a fool. I wasn't building a fortress. I was digging a grave and inviting us both in. The hum came first. Then, the warmth. It started in my rituals. A single, perfect note would resonate in the quiet of my study, so pure it made my teeth ache. Then a warmth would flood the room, not like a fire, but like a fever breaking. It felt like grace. It felt like being chosen. They came after that. Not all at once. They were a choir that assembled one voice at a time. I'd be chanting, my throat raw, and I'd feel a presence kiss my brow. A whisper would coil in my ear, telling me I was beloved, that my search was over. Light would bleed from the edges of the drawn curtains, too bright for the time of day, impossibly golden. Every rite, every drop of blood I let onto a sigil drew them closer. Their song filled my head, a symphony of adoration that drowned out everything else. It drowned out Serena's worried questions. It drowned out the tiny, cold part of my own mind that kept whispering, "This isn't right." I became powerful. I don't know what else to call it. The sigils I drew on paper seemed to pulse with their own faint light. The air in my study grew thick and heavy, smelling of ozone and hot metal. I could whisper a person's name and feel a thread of their life spooling into my hands. And blessings followed. My boss at work, a man who had made my life a misery for years, had a sudden, debilitating stroke the day after I'd carved his initials into a wax puppet. We got a letter a week later. A distant aunt I'd never met had died in a fire, leaving me a sum of money that was, to us, a fortune. I told Serena it was a miracle. I held her in our new, bigger home and told her we were safe now, that we were looked after. I believed it. I had to. Because the alternative was that I was a monster, building our perfect life on a foundation of pain and ruin. The rot started to show. Serena, my beautiful, sunlit Serena, still practiced her shoreline magic. But now, when she lit her candles, I could see other things moving in the flicker of the flames. Shimmering, translucent threads that seemed to snake from the shadows and weave around her wrists, her throat. They glowed with the same counterfeit golden light as the choir. She never saw them. She'd just smile, a little more tired each day, her light dimming in a way only I could see. The choir was feeding on her hope, her purity, and she didn't even know she was on the menu. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. The hymn in my head was louder than ever, a roaring cathedral of sound. I was in the study, candles dripping hot wax onto the floor, the air shimmering with heat. I felt them coalesce, 1,000 voices, 1,000 pairs of wings made of scraping light. The ecstasy was suffocating. I felt my bones vibrating with their song, my soul stretching thin to let them in. And through a gap in the noise, I heard it. Underneath the perfect, angelic harmony was a lower sound, a wet, eager gnashing of teeth. I looked up into the polished surface of a silver scrying bowl on my desk. I didn't see my reflection. I saw the room behind me, but the beautiful, radiant light of the choir was gone. In its place was a swarm. A pulsing, writhing mass of something like locusts, made of fractured light and shadow, their wings beating silently. And in the center of the swarm, 1,000 tiny, needle-sharp mouths opened and closed, opened and closed. Their beauty was a mask. Their light was a lie. Their song was the buzzing of carrion flies. I broke. A scream tore out of my throat, a sound of pure animal terror. It wasn't a word. It was just the sound of a man who has finally seen the true face of his god and found it to be a monster. I screamed against them, against the lies I'd told myself, against the ruin I'd brought into my home. In that scream, I finally let go. I stopped fighting, stopped seeking, stopped demanding. I surrendered, not to the choir, but to the silence they had been trying so hard to drown out, to the quiet, patient stillness I had ignored for years. And the stillness answered. It wasn't a roar. It was a single, clean strike of lightning inside my skull. The choir shrieked as one, their symphony shattering into a billion discordant screeches. The candles in the room didn't just go out, they exploded, spraying the walls with hot wax. The sigils I'd painted on the floorboards burst into silent, white-hot flame. The fire didn't touch the room. It touched me. It was a clean, annihilating burn that started in my marrow and erupted outward. I felt my skin blacken and peel away like old paper, but there was nothing underneath but more fire. Words I didn't know etched themselves into my bones, turning them into a glowing cage of light. My blood didn't just boil, it turned to steam and hissed out of my pores, rising as coiling, shadow serpents that wrapped around me. Every nerve in my body was a wire igniting. I felt memories flaking away into ash, my first kiss with Serena, the day we got married, the sound of her laughter. They were being burned out of me, scoured clean by this terrible holy fire. The choir was being burned too. I felt them being fused to me, their shrieks becoming a part of my own sinew, their rotten wings branding themselves onto my shadow. I was no longer a worshiper. I had become their cage, their tomb. My heart hammered against my ribs, faster and faster, until it stopped. And in the silence, it ignited, a single booming beat of a celestial drum. When it was over, Kaylin was gone. I stood up, but it wasn't my body. It was scarred parchment stretched over a frame of glowing embers. My breath was smoke and cinder. I looked at my hands. They were pale, almost translucent, covered in a latticework of silvery scars that seemed to shift like script. The name came with the first breath. Ash. That's all that was left. But there was no peace. The choir is still here. They're inside me. A constant, hateful murmur behind my thoughts. 1,000 promises of power. 1,000 whispers of mockery. 1,000 voices clawing to get out. My life is a constant war fought on the battlefield of my own mind. And Serena. The fire set me free, but her chains are still there. I see them clear as day now. Delicate, beautiful, deadly. She doesn't know. She just sees the man she loves, who now looks like a ghost, who flinches at her touch sometimes because the cacophony in his head gets too loud. She thinks my love has cooled. She has no idea I am more devoted to her now than ever before. My torment is this. I have to save her from a prison she cannot see. I cannot break her chains for her. She has to choose to walk away from the beautiful lie. And all I can do is fight the war within myself and wait. The choir still sings inside my bones, and I walk forward. I wear heaven's fire like a shroud, and I carry hell as a whisper in my own head. And I will keep her safe, even if I have to burn the whole damn world down to do it. Even her.